Welcome back, guys. Automotive Inc. We are getting ready to do our video of things you must do before you put your RV in storage for the year. I'm going to give you some kind of like some easier things to do instead of always having to buy all that expensive antifreeze that's just junk and stuff like that. I'm going to give you a couple different options here. I'm going to show you my must-dos before you put this thing into storage. There is another video I made on one of the best upgrades you can do for your RV, and I'll link that video in the description of this video, guys, and I will link everything that I use as tools and or likes in here, so that way it'll help you do it. First things first, guys, this is the biggest upgrade. I put a forever roof on the trailer when we got it just because it was an older unit and never been outside in a day in its life, and I decided I was going to put this forever roof on there, so I didn't want to mess with lap sealing or anything like that. Before you put the RV in storage, it's a good opportunity to get up here, spray off the roof with a garden hose or a pressure washer, and check your lap seals. And the reason why I would do it at the end of the year, if you haven't done already, is just to make sure everything looks good, because you're about ready to go into storage. This is a good opportunity that if you're going to find a vent that's hard to find or something like that, you can get those on order and get them done. If it's under warranty at the end of the season, it's the best time to be trying to get your RV into the dealer also, so that way you'll have time to leave it. But if you get up here and you find that you have issues, it's going to be cooler this time of year, you're done using it, and it'll be ready for you next year. So get up here, check your seals, make sure everything's good to go on that. All right, first thing is you need to get all the water out of the system if you can. And what a lot of times people will do, they'll drop antifreeze, RV antifreeze, into their drinking water tube. Now, some people just don't drink their water from their RV. Fine, if that's your thing, that's fine. I grew up drinking water from the hose, so I'm okay with it. However, I don't like drinking chemicals starting next year, so I have never put antifreeze in my tanks, and I have never had a single problem. I also don't waste time usually with putting antifreeze in the P-traps, because usually I just run hot water through those systems enough after our last trip, and that way there's no organics in there. And what tends to happen anyway is that antifreeze evaporates, I guess, if you will, or basically just sits in there anyway. And if there are organics in it, that stuff will just smell just as nasty and just as moldy. Your P-traps are made out of PVC, so typically you're not going to have a lot of issues with if you run hot water through it and then drain your systems out. You're usually not going to have a lot of problems. But how do I get water out of the lines? Now, most trailers have a vinyl PEX type material that they make the tubing out of, so really not a huge issue with freezing. However, we do try and get most of it out of it. So this little sweet guy is what I've been using for years. When I had my new Keystone, they actually said I could use air. You blow out your sprinklers at your house every year, or you should be. And this little tool will save you $100 a year just in antifreeze alone. So what you'll do is you'll buy this little connector, and I'll put this in the description again. And what you'll do is you'll come up, you'll screw this in to your city water hookup. Okay, guys, this other end is going to go to a compressor. Now, I put a little valve on there so I can shut the water on and off, or sorry, the air on and off. But you don't have to have that. And then you don't even have to have a big compressor, because you're not going to use a lot of air. Now, sprinkler systems in the ground can handle a lot more PSI. I would suggest going to the regulator on your air compressor, turning it down to like 20, and then plugging this in, and then just seeing how much pressure is coming out of there. If it seems like a ton, then you might want to turn it down. But usually after you have a 25-foot run of hose, your PSI at the end of the hose is probably 10. So you're going to lose some PSI just going through the hose, and I think 10 is going to be more than good. Before you, though, go in there and turn the air on there, you want to do a couple things. All right, before you put your pressure to the hose, you're going to want to come into your camper, go to every faucet, and I would leave the faucets cracked just at a 45, just like I do. So let me just check and show you what it looks like. Same thing here. Turn these on a little bit. Again, making sure the pump is not on. What this is going to allow is air to flow through the system. So usually as the water freezes, it expands and contracts. There's no room for it to go because these are sealed. Obviously, they're shut off. So if you leave these, it gives it kind of room to kind of move. Again, we want the pump to be off. Check and make sure all of our tanks are basically empty. This one sometimes reads a little bit high, and you may notice that with your trailer. You'll get to know your trailer and your system and everything like that. So once you get all of these open, Then go ahead and check and make sure the PSI is about 10. Turn it on, and basically it's going to blow the system out. Once it gets done, guys, you're done with the system. Leave those cracked. Again, keeping in mind you may want to make yourself a list for the first couple of years so you remember to do all of these things, but then just make sure the pump's shut off. Being a year come in, if you forget, you'll hear the pump turn on when you activate the battery again, and you'll come in and you will shut those off. And then that way you don't have to worry about antifreeze or chemicals or any of that trash. You don't have to really worry about your P-traps again, your personal preference. If you like dumping antifreeze all over the place, and then you like rinsing your tank out if you drink out of it. But this way you never really have to worry about it, especially if you've drained your fresh tank good. You don't have to put your water, there shouldn't be anything in there that's going to cause it to mold, because usually there has to be some type of introduction to an organic in there. Your water has enough chlorine and stuff in it that it should be just fine. I don't like pouring bleach down there, so you should be good. Once you get done with that, guys, your water system is officially drained and you're good to go. All right, next thing I'd look at. Next thing I would make sure and check after we get everything blown out. Again, whatever's blowing out in the sink isn't going to be a lot, but if you want to put a catch container in there, you're concerned about that small amount of water getting into your gray tank. Guys, it's going to take a lot of water. We're talking probably enough to put a thin layer, probably an inch or two in those tanks that you really need to worry about getting out for it to potentially freeze and crack the tanks. And those are made of a heavy-duty vinyl plastic, and you shouldn't have to worry about it a lot. But now that we got everything out, we need to make sure we drain all of our fresh water out. And what I like to do is I like to try and use it up at the campsite if we can. If you want to catch it and put it on your grass, perfect. But a lot of times these little hoses are not really big enough to do anything with. So you can see my freshwater low point drain is right there. Again, it's too small to put a hose on, but it does have like a little T, so if you want to put a little small hose on it and run it over to your grass, you can. But once that's done, I like to basically open that, and while I'm doing everything else, just let it drain, and then I leave it open until next year, okay? Nothing's gonna climb up in there, past the little ball valve or anything like that, but if you've had it open for several days at your house, then you can go ahead and just close it at 45. There'll be nothing that gets in there, but then you don't have to worry about any type of freeze and thaw. There'll be a little bit of air to get through there, so you should be good there. So just make sure that that's drained, because that could be catastrophic if you had a lot of freeze thaw and you left a lot of water in there. If you're in a warm climate, probably not a huge deal, but water can sometimes just get a little funky from sitting. But again, unless there's an organic in there, you shouldn't have to worry about it. All right, another thing a lot of people times they'll forget, and this is one of the most expensive things you're gonna have to ever replace on that hot water heater. So go to your hot water heater, and you're gonna need to drain it first of all. So make sure it's been off for a few days and it's not hot. If you just have to do it while it's hot, then you can, but you're gonna wanna relieve the pressure. So just like in your house, grab the pressure valve, pull it up, let it release off. It's gonna drain down here, it's gonna drain out the bottom. Okay, so down here I've already taken out my anode. So this is the low point of the drain of the tank. Go ahead and take that out and basically clean up all of this stuff. I just left it open as I was driving. So this is all the stuff that comes off the anode itself. And then put the anode in your trailer. Don't lay it on the workbench, because what tends to happen a lot of times is you'll forget, and then it'll be lost and everything. And it's hard to find. Try and get all the water out of these threads though down here, because these can rust away, even though the anode won't, and then you'll have a pickle getting in there next time. If you forget to drain your hot water heater, this holds about 10 gallons. The actual tank for it is not robust enough to handle freeze thaw, and it more than likely will crack, and then you're talking several hundreds, if not thousands, depending on if you can do the work yourself or not. So my suggestion to you is that is a simple 1, 2, 3 thing for yourself to just make sure you get checked, put it up, make a checklist every year, and make sure all of that's good. The next thing I would do, guys, is just make sure you shut off your propane tanks, no matter which ones. If you like to remove them during the winter, you can. If you like to remove them because it's in outdoor storage and people might steal them, go ahead and just make sure they're shut off. That way there's no even thought or concern about, did you leave the gas on the oven or the heater kicking on or anything like that. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is batteries. Now, wherever your battery compartment is, go to it. Batteries are expensive. And if you have a maintenance-free battery, which means you don't ever add water, then that's great. That's another plus. However, there's always a slight draw. So if you're going to leave these hooked up and it can't stay plugged in where the inverter can run it and charge it, then you're going to need to maintain those batteries. I'll put a link in the description to some battery maintainers or trickle chargers that you can just leave hooked up. I've never had an issue with them, and they will keep the batteries. You just need to hook it to one. So if you have several in parallel or whatever, you can just hook it to it. They'll automatically read and analyze, kick on when and if they need to, and be good. One thing I would suggest is if you don't need the actual terminals connected to the battery, is go ahead and disconnect the terminals. And that way your Trickle Charger won't have to be kind of doing double duty in regards to, you know, if there's a smoke detector or a CO2 alarm that's hooked up. And so that way you're kind of covered there. In addition to that, I would also say that if you have a maintenance battery, meaning you have to add distilled water, this would be a good time to check it because, again, it has water in it. It can freeze, it can thaw. The lower the power is in the battery, if it was to go dead, if it didn't have enough water, it could damage it. So just go ahead and get that done. And then typically what will happen is at the beginning of the season, you can check it again, but more than likely you won't have to even do any maintenance to it. So that way you'll be good to go. So again, I would put a Trickle Charger on it and close the compartments up. All right, guys, we're getting to where we're wrapping up this video. All right. This is a good time for you guys to check again everything on the trailer. Make sure all your little cubbies are closed. You never know when you might forget to, so just do a final walk around. Make sure those are entry points for critters, insects, and nasty shit. So, but check everything, because this is a good time at the end of the season where you can order hard to get stuff. Although the internet now is probably not as hard as it used to be, having to order a catalog and wait. But with some things being on restriction, just because the way the world is that way now, it's a good time that you can order it. Like I had to get this seal for this older unit, and that's some hard and a very expensive seal to get. It took about 4 weeks, but it might be a good opportunity for you to find little things like that and get those on order. All right, so basically there's one other thing that I gotta mention. This is probably something that seems so ridiculous to everybody that I'm even mentioning. You're like, come on, Jeremy, we already knew about this. Refrigerators. Guys, refrigerators in RVs are notorious and notorious in life to get just stinky while you're using them. So make sure you can get some Arm & Hammer or some baking soda of whatever brand you want. And I'll put a link to that just in case you're not a baker or you haven't really heard of it, you're new to RVing. Yeah, you can put a box in there, but my mom has actually found out that using a little Tupperware not only doesn't spill in transit a lot of times, but it actually puts a wider opening for that to absorb it. And baking soda will absorb a lot of nasty odors. So we like to put a little cup up in here, and then these doors need to stay ajar, guys. So if your RV came with the little clips, fantastic. If not, grab yourself a handy dandy towel that you don't care about, go about halfway back, and you're good to go. Remember to take those out though before you drive, otherwise your expensive refrigerator doors will be sitting back here swinging and damaging themselves and damaging everything else. But once you're done with it for the year, again, in the fridge, we like to, my mom hooked us up with these big, huge Tupperwares, but the more the better. Getting an odor out of your refrigerator is hard in all get out. So buy a huge pack of the Arm & Hammer, get that in there, and then again, we are going to take a cheap microfiber towel, and that's going to be enough to keep it ajar. Now I'll probably overlap this one on the fridge door just get a little bit heavier. That's enough to let the stink out, guys. So those are my must-haves. And I tell you guys, when I do these, I don't have any issues with anything. And because trailers are not cheap, maybe you bought a cheap trailer, but still your hard-earned money, you want to keep it in good condition, the best condition you possibly can. And what my mom and dad and I have found is over the years that these little hacks are going to be what save the day. And I'm telling you guys, if you do these things, you're going to guarantee yourself a lot less headaches and a lot of things in the future. Once my unit is all locked up and ready to be put away for the year, and anytime I actually store it, I put one more thing out. If you have outdoor storage or even indoor storage, mice, critters, spiders, whatever, and you're thinking, well, I might set traps in my thing. Well, that's fine. But what happens is if you do catch a mouse in those traps, a lot of times they don't collect the goo that melts off of them before you find the mouse. So although I'm not endorsed by them, these are the cheapest and best thing you can get. I'll put a link to them on the Zahn. You can get them at your local hardware store and at the local Wally Mart. And I'm telling you, these right here collect everything that's in them. They're 100% safe. They're not. They have no issues with, anything like that. They attract the mice to them. So if the mice are hunting for food inside your unit, then they'll actually do it. But one also great thing about it, guys, is even if you don't have a mouse problem, here's what's cool. These things get cricket, spiders, and everything else that freaking crawls. And they're so cool. I use these at my house just to collect all the nasty spiders because they'll collect everything. But I'll take these and set these around the perimeter. So there's 4 traps in this box. If you need the bigger ones, they have bigger ones. Like if you have rat issues, out here in the plains, we don't have issues with rats, but we do have field mice and everything like that. So once I put my landing gear down, I will put these all around it. And I'm gonna go over and show you my mom's, because these things, like I said, all of these things are trying to get into your unit. Okay, so this is all these little spiders, and if you use these at your house, I mean, these aren't gonna hurt your pet if they get into them. They're a little sticky for cats and whatnot, but for the most part, cats are smart enough, they won't mess with that. And it's just cheap insurance at less than, you know, $2 or less than $2.25, depending on where you're getting these. To not have to worry about a mouse getting in there and go in the bathroom, or a mouse getting in there and chewing up your comforter or chewing up wiring and stuff like that. This is the best thing you can do before you leave. Throw these down. If they are outside, put these inside your camper, because again, if it doesn't seal well and you have, say, brown recluse or black widow issues, these right here are going to save a lot of heartache come the next season or the next time you go check. And like I said, if you don't check it for the next 3 months, if a mouse does get on here, it does collect all of the stuff that the mouse is attached to. They will not be able to get off here, and they typically don't even tip them over, but that way you can just pick up the whole trap from the edge and throw it away. All right, guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody watching. Down there in the corner is the subscribe button. Smash the like button for me. If you have friends or family that are interested in car and automotive and RV stuff like that, have them subscribe to my channel. That helps the channel out a lot. Again, we're trying to build it and go from here. We had a great towing season, really zero issues, but a lot of great content, guys. So check out my channel, go up to the search bar, type in whatever you think you might need, and I probably have the answer. And if not, you can ask me in the comments, and I will do my best to get back to you and answer any and all questions that I get, guys. I appreciate you being here. Thanks.